glasses on. Okay. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act pursuant to Public Law 1975, Chapter 231. Said notice was published in the Home News Tribune on January 2nd of this year, posted in Borough Hall, and sent to the Star Ledger for information. All requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act were satisfied. Would you please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Bob, as always, would you do the honors and lead us off, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Can we have roll call, please?
Yes, of course. Ms. Clarkson? Here. Ms. Cohn? Here. Mr. Delia?
Here.
Mr. Erickson?
Here.
Ms. Gelber?
Here.
Mr. Grossman? Ms. Koskowski?
Here.
Mr. Lifton?
Here.
Mr. Love? Mr. Westrick? Mr. Coughlin? Ms. Zachariah?
Here.
Thank you.
Declare a healthy quorum present. Thank you for coming out this evening.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Should we invite Ms. Zachariah up?
I was thinking the same thing. I was wondering if she was being annexed for some particular reasons, sent to Outer Mongolia. Would you like to join us up on the dais? Come closer. No reason for you to be so far away.
Yeah, this is kind of very awkward here.
Oh, well, only if you want to, certainly. It's voluntary. All right. Okay, so our new business for this evening is NHA Properties, which of course the board heard earlier last year in August, and they're coming here with an amendment and a change. We have Chris's memo. Could you please come forward and present your case?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Larry Lavender, from law firm Wiley Lavender McNor. On behalf of the applicants, good to see you all. I know we're the only ones on the agenda. I'm hoping to make this very easy and an early night for all of us. Briefly,
Mr. Lavender,
Yes.
can I ask you to speak into the mic?
I apologize. I thought I was. No problem.
Probably be easiest
Yeah.
if you just take it out of that stand and hold on to it.
Gotcha.
I tell people to pretend they're Frank Sinatra.
There you go. That's a good one.
How's that?
Much better.
Much better.
Great. I believe, as the chairman said earlier, that this application came before the board sometime in '24, I believe, and they received approval to construct a small mixed-use building at 136 Main Street with, and the application had various site improvements. And the applicant's back now to ask for some exterior facade changes. So hopefully this is a brief testimony, and if with your permission, I'll have my client come up and explain the changes that he would like to have.
Sure. Why don't we have him
Sure.
sworn in?
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth and nothing but the truth? Yes. Witness has been sworn in. Let me just give I know Mr. Lavender just straightened out what his application is. So all these things that are listed, amended preliminary and final major site plan approval, together with C variances, exceptions, and requests for waiver of submission requirements, they've already been granted. So what they're asking is, A, to be relieved of a condition which was that the entire facade, not the entire facade, that the entire building had to be bricked, or brick-faced, I guess. And that, the request to change that brings about a second separate application, which is for an exception from the continuity of, I'll call it continuity of facade requirement that basically says you have to have the same treatment all the way around. So so we're asking to amend the application or amend the approval and grant that exception. Under the exception, that they're to show that it's either impractical or a hardship in order for the exception to be granted. So with that,
Good evening.
So we're requesting that the.
I'm sorry, I forgot to ask you this. I need for your full name, unless you gave it already. Did I miss that?
No, you didn't.
Okay, we need your name and address, please.
Sure. It's Helder Asuncio, 1716 Ramapo Way, Scotch Plains, New Jersey.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're asking to have brick in the front of the building only, and the remaining three sides be hardy plank. You have a full brick in the front and hardy plank in the back and the three sides. The back, I don't know if we can get this on the screen. Is that possible or no?
Yeah, you just need to plug in your computer into the HDMI cable that's over the wall.
Yeah, I did that and it didn't work. Oh well. So the back of the building has a carport where cars park underneath the second floor, which is living space. So the initial approval had brick on that second floor above the carport, which structurally is difficult to achieve just for the size of the steel necessary to support the brick. So that was the main driving force for asking for this change.
Are we supposed to be able to see this, or is it? what is-
I'm trying to
supposed be up?
reach out to downstairs to see why this is not, is it connected correctly?
Plugged in over here as well.
It is, okay, thank you.
Probably mirroring output. Or
But the screen is saying that there's no signal.
Yeah, it's above my pay grade.
there's the one input on the TV, you know? Yeah, to the four. Okay.
Experiencing technical difficulties, please stand by.
Hoping it's-
Maybe if you look at it long enough, something will change.
Oh,
We need to walk into the room.
you just walked in.
That was just
That's how powerful you are.
divine intervention.
Nice.
I'll work now.
Okay.
Yes, well, that's why. Aren't you glad Alan got us back to having paper?
So we stopped touching it. Yeah, so you can see on the left side elevation, there's parking underneath the building. And initially, the second floor had brick there.
We don't have this, or do we?
Yeah, we do.
All right,
This should be the front cover.
okay. All right, they have it, so that's all that matters. I have something different, but that's
Trying to
fine.
mess with you, Bob.
This is a,
Okay,
There you go.
Thank
That's
you.
right on there.
all right.
I look professional. Okay, continue.
okay.
So it's also, it's a small building, and the cost associated with putting actual brick on all four sides is significant, as well as if we had to put it on that second floor without having any brick on the first floor. So that's basically the main reasons that we're in front of the board this evening.
Excuse me, did you read Mr. Cosenza's planning report?
Yes, I did.
So he said he had no problem eliminating the brick on the back. But he did have a problem with I guess, the two side facades, because you agreed to keep the brick on the front. So what are we considering this evening? Just substituting for the brick on both sides of the building? And and the back, with which Chris didn't have a problem. Is that a fair rendition?
Yeah, so our application was just in the front, and then we received Chris's letter the other day where he mentioned putting it on the two sides. I believe, Chris, I believe what you're saying is basically from here to the front.
Yeah, you can call it the foremost portion of the building, basically the solid massing that reads as the primary building.
And then same thing
That-
on this side.
Correct.
Okay.
That was my recommendation.
The very low chair you have over there, Chris, all I'm getting is a forehead.
A tall
No
wall.
hair on the top. There you go. Ah, nice. So Chris, what did the board approve initially? Brick on all sides or just?
I guess you could say on all 7 sides, it would be brick. And the applicant's proposing
So
just,
initially, it was everything brick, and you were saying in your memo, the relief is acceptable in the back of the property.
Yeah.
You're willing to make that concession with the applicant, but not this sides because the applicant already agreed to do that, and you think it should remain?
that's my recommendation. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I do find, just having a brick, like let's say you have a typical McMansion, you have the brick front, it is an odd condition. It looks like a incomplete home. So my recommendation would be do the square block structure as brick and let the rear addition read as hardy plank, or just let the whole building be hardy plank. But if we were to go that route, it would be good to get a sense of what other structures are in the neighborhood and see if that would fit in. Yeah.
Well, also, okay, just one other comment about, I'm sorry, the plans
Okay.
that we received. I mean, is the brick colored brick? Because our plans show everything gray. And is
So
that, I mean, is that, I know it's computer generated
Yeah.
and it's kind of
Monochromatic gray
meaningless. So is the building going to look gray,
No,
even the front?
no, not at all. No, it would be,
So we can discount that
yes,
rendition of the building?
for sure. The rendition in the bottom right-hand corner is, we can try to blow it up and not mess this up, but
Well, we have this page and it's gray one.
Yes, it
I mean, it looks totally gray.
probably on the bottom right. That color is-
Yeah.
I'll look at it later. There you go. Washed out.
So the board can assume that the brick that you're talking about is the traditional red brick?
yes, sir.
Okay. And then the sides, as you propose around it would be the grayish color, or neutral color, I should say? In your hardy plank, in your proposal?
Yeah, we pick a color from the Hardy catalog, essentially, not necessarily gray, but
Okay.
from their catalog. If the board would be okay with Chris's suggestion, would we be able to do a brick veneer and still give the
You mean a thin brick?
thin brick and still give the appearance with the depth of natural brick?
I think we can work with that. It may involve punching out or furring out the corner
Yep.
so it reads as coming out further, and
Yep.
then obviously have to work on the details of the header and the sill so it doesn't read too flat. You may need to fur out the building a little
Right.
bit just to fake it, but I don't think I would objection to that.
I'm still trying to make sure, so the front two sides would be real brick?
Yeah, the front would be dimensional brick. The sides would be a thin brick, but it would involve some furring out to give the appearance of a dimensional brick.
And then the rear would be white wood.
Correct. I was on the assumption it would
Can
be
you
like a
keep
dark
your
red. The
voices
rendering is,
up so that the board members can
oh, sure.
hear the testimony? I appreciate it.
My question to the board and directly to Chris was for my own clarification that and I'm going to mess up the terminology, so Chris will have to help me. So the front would be what I'm calling real brick. What'd you call it, Chris?
Just dimensional brick.
Dimensional brick. The sides would be thin brick.
Correct.
Aesthetically, the front and the sides would have the appearance of the red traditional brick.
Correct. That will involve some furring out of the exterior facade and sheathing to give it the dimension. It's more critical at the corner as well as with the punched openings, the fenestration.
Gotcha. And then the rear, there would be no brick on the rear, but it would be hardy board. And then my question then was, does the board have a suggestion on the color for the hardy board? If that was, in fact, what the board was okay with, and what I was getting clarification from Chris.
Well, let's clarify the brick and the hardy board too. So I think each side of this building has, I don't know, I'm going to say 2 dimensions. I don't know if that's the correct phraseology, but it goes straight back from the front, and then on both sides, it juts in a distance. I don't remember what the distance is.
It's about 2
But
feet.
You're only talking, Chris, about the part that goes straight back. Am I right about that?
I think it would be probably more accurate to say that the front massing of the building, the 4 sides would be brick, such that, well, it had the appearance of brick. The front facade would be dimensional brick. The other sides would be thin brick. The rear, the rearmost portion of the building, it reads as the rear wing would be the portion with the carport and the second story overhang. That would be the hardy plank.
Right, that's where I've got the disconnect that I'm not understanding. So when you say the rear of the building, are you talking about just the back of the building that's parallel to the street? Or are you talking about the part that's indented along the side?
It would be, if you look at the left side of elevation, it would be from the middle of the building to the rear facade, as well as the rear facade and the other side mirroring that left side elevation. So basically, the last half of the building would be hardy plank. The front half of the building would be brick.
So I actually have a question just to take a step back from the particulars, and I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm just trying to understand the chronology and how we ended up here tonight. So there was an application from last year that was approved by this board in which there was full brick on all sides. And Marcel, your architect, drew it that way, presumably. Presumably he has engineers on staff or however he does it for loading and steel and all those questions, I presume, would have been addressed in the original application before it was even drawn. You received that approval, and now you're back saying that that approval is not feasible for you, either through cost or engineering problems. Did your architect make a mistake? I mean, I'm going back to the beginning. Why are we here? I don't understand. What changed from last year to this year?
All 4 sides being brick is buildable. There's no argument that it isn't or isn't buildable. It's honestly the cost associated with putting brick on a second floor where there's no first floor. So you literally have to, typically brick goes from the ground up.
Right.
And this case, that wouldn't be. So you're supporting brick in the air, essentially. And aesthetically, I don't think that's very appealing because it's not normal. Stone or brick for me always starts from the ground up,
Right.
not in the second floor up. So should we have caught it the first go around? Absolutely. And should we maybe have brought it up and been more aggressive about not putting it there? Absolutely. It was an oversight on our part. The architect draws what we tell him to draw. We had thousands of meetings going back through COVID and Zoom meetings with Chris, and this thing's been going on since 22, 23. So it got lost.
Okay. Fair enough.
It was a mistake on our part.
Fair enough. I just, I think, and again, I'm not pinning this on this application specifically. I think the planning board has an interest in not having applications come in one form, get approvals, and then come back. Well, it's already approved. What do you mean? It's just a small change. I mean, I'm not saying you're doing this. I'm just saying we have an interest in not having that process go on.
I get it.
Where, a very acceptable application comes in, it gets approved, and then a year later, when it's ready to build, they're like, well, the cost of brick went up, or the steel went up, or it's a hardship because now it's a fait accompli because you already got your approvals, and now you're asking for something different. I'm not saying you're doing that. I do appreciate, though, the honesty. It was missed, that this was never, it's buildable, but not particularly practical. It was missed on the original application, and you're back to build something that's aesthetically agreeable to people, and I appreciate that. I just wanted to understand that a little better. Thank you.
Okay, so it seems we have some consensus on what the planner would find acceptable, which is
Yes.
slightly different from the letter, but we know what it is. And the technical language makes sense. Dimensional brick versus full brick, for your happiness, Bob?
I understand what the proposal is, yes, thank you.
Very good, well, challenging at times. What's left for us to consider, Chris? What else other than, it seems like this is the only issue?
It is, and I think we heard testimony on the hardship, that literal enforcement of that provision is impractical
Okay.
due to the cost of the steel, which was, a building cost analysis. It was a typical before you start construction, you realize the steel cost went up like everything else did, and it was just impractical at this point.
Well, again, and I think it's good that John brought it up because, we don't want to have applications come back as a general rule. We want to do our job right the first time and then have that be the case. So I appreciate the applicant's honesty and John's question, and we have our reason. So the only question now, board, is are you of the mind to accommodate this request for change or are you not? Any questions you have, Bob, relative to the language or anything?
Nope, thank
before-
you, I
Okay, so
understand it.
then at this point, the chair will entertain a motion for something.
Should we open it to the public?
can.
Can I just ask,
You can.
can we just subject whatever we approve here to review by the planner when,
Always,
okay.
absolutely. Chris, I mean, color, if anything else, right? I was going to say, that's always Chris's wheelhouse.
Yeah, I'll work with the applicant.
I'd also like to make clear that there are no other amendments to the plan being requested. So everything else that was decided at the last hearing is still in place.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so just to be clear, then, the approval if granted, or I should say the application as amended for your consideration would be full brick on the front, on the facade, thin brick or brick veneer on the front portion of both sides with hardy board on the rear portion of both sides and the back.
That's good.
Sounds good.
Color to be determined after consultation with the plan.
Excellent.
Or color would be, all the facade, they're gonna match, right?
I think we
I
can trust
mean-
Chris. He's pretty good,
Yeah.
could be an interior designer in another life. So,
I
Ms.
just also want to note another point that Chris had made, and I think we could put into the record, was that the side of the house would be visually exposed to Main Street because of its situation. And I think, again, it's important to maintain a Main Street look or facade for the buildings, especially when there's an improvement proposed and that building is not in great shape now. So obviously, we want a finished product to be a complement to Main Street and the neighborhood.
Curb
Thank
appeal,
you.
there you go. So, okay, so I'm going to say again, Ms. Koskowski, would you count that as a motion, what you mentioned earlier?
Sure.
Okay.
Mr. Chairperson, did you open up to the public yet?
You're right, I did not open it up to the public, so let's do that, since I always forget. If you're in the public, let me find this gal here. Come on down to the microphone, tell us your name, your address. I'm looking out above the chairs, and I don't see any takers. So, with that, I'm going to close the public portion. And once again, I'll say, Linda, was that a motion on your behalf?
Yes.
Okay, and Ellen did that count as a second by any chance?
Sure.
All right. Joanne, can we have a vote, please?
Yes, of course. Ms. Clarkson,
Yes.
Ms. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Delia,
Yes.
Ms. Gelber,
Yes.
Ms. Koskowski,
Yes.
Mr. Lifton,
Yes.
Mr. Erickson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Successful, congratulations, good example of everyone working together. Okay, quick, can I get a motion to approve the correspondence for the meeting minutes of September 4th of this year, please?
I'll move to
sorry.
approve.
I'm sorry, it just, it's just, the comment at the end where, I just want to, okay. You said attend the DRC. My comment was meant to have a lay planning board member appointed to that board. It wasn't just attending the DRC meetings.
Okay. Yes, so I have
just
to
wanna
bring
make
that to
the sense-
administration.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm just saying that that's what my suggestion
Okay,
was.
thank you for
That-
clarifying
So
that.
only the minutes have to be changed.
Okay, so I see what you're saying.
Say appointed as opposed to
Oh,
attending.
yes, okay, thank you.
Sorry.
No, I think accuracy is important, so that's duly noted for the meeting minutes. And with that, again, I'll say, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So I'll move as amended. Ms.
As
Clausen.
amended, and I
Yes, I'll
think we're
move.
still going there, right? And we're going to talk about it tonight. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second.
All right. For those of you who would like to make a motion to approve these minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
If there are any opposed, please say nay. Okay, they are approved. Now, again, I don't want to insinuate myself onto the board in any way, but I know that, Ellen, you brought up your concern about the former TRC and the current DRC. And I know John also mentioned, and he had some interest, so I'm not looking to be provocative. I'm just following up on your inquiry, and it seems like in a way you've expanded on it with your correction about the meeting minutes. So what we're saying is specifically, and everyone, of course, chime in here, and you're welcome to share your thoughts and comments, but your interest in is having someone from the planning board participate in the DRC process such that you feel it would be a benefit to the overall process so that it's fully comprehensive and it would
Yeah,
benefit the
so
board.
that, I think, again, a lay member of the planning board. Because in the past, some of the applications that have come to the board, I think would have benefited from some kind of review or, commentary from a member of the planning board that's not looking at it from a professional point of view of, for example, not an engineer, not a planner, but just overall presentation to the general public and to members of the board.
Okay. John, why don't you chime in here?
Sure, I mean, I sort of agree, I agree, of course, and I said my piece last time. I do have a question about the current structure of the DRC. Who chairs those meetings now? Who leads the meetings?
I'll have to check the ordinance, but I don't think there's a chairperson per se. But I usually run the meeting with the engineer and with Linda and the zoning official, with the applicant's professionals.
So, looking back to my admittedly limited time on the TRC, Ms. Clarkson, is it true that in the old TRC, you certainly appeared to be chairing it? Was your function at the time to chair those
Yes.
meetings?
Yes.
So, looking back at the old TRC, it was even more than just a member or members of the planning board on or available. We led, a representative of the planning board led those meetings. I wasn't clear at the time. Can you, perhaps you can shed some light, why was the process changed from the TRC to the DRC to begin with?
I don't recall the specifics. There's obviously a suggestion from either mayor and council administration. It's more of an administrative change, but I don't recall the reason specifically.
Because, obviously, you have to take what you can get, but, Ellen has now suggested perhaps one planning board person could be on the committee or attend the meetings as a member of the committee. That's still quite a step back from the way it used to be, which is that the planning board member ran the committee. And, obviously this is for the governing body to decide. It's part of ordinance, isn't it? I mean, they made a new ordinance that defined the DRC and placed the TRC. That was not our doing. That was the governing body's doing, correct?
Right, they introduced the ordinance.
Correct. So it's not, we don't have the ability or the power to change it if it's an ordinance that was passed by the governing body. I just, I sort of like the way it worked then. And I mean, perhaps a half step is all we can sort of petition for to get representation back on. But considering we're the ones who hear the applications and have to sit through the hours that we've sat through over the last couple of years, meetings where the documents are obviously deficient, back and forth, deferrals, tablings. I don't really think it would be too much to ask for potentially the borough council to actually revisit why we changed it to begin with. And is it working? Is it working as well as we had hoped it would work, the change? And if it's not, was there really a problem with the structure that it was originally? Which is that there were two planning board members. At the time, it was Ms. Clarkson and myself when it was discontinued. Maybe that's why they discontinued it. Didn't want me on it. But I thought it worked pretty well. And I was never clear why it was changed to begin with.
I think there was a member of the Board of Adjustment on it as well.
Yeah.
I'm not
And
clear
fire
why it
department
was
as well.
changed. I'm sure there was a reason that, but rather than
I
just
know
have.
the reason. I mean, I was told the reason, or I can kind of express without, I don't want to advocate for it, but the reason was that the complaint, I think, was that the TRC was becoming sort of a pre-planning board where the board members who were there, and not necessarily those who were there when it was changed, were sort of regarded as representing the planning board, so that when people came to the planning board, they were expecting that they would just get approved because they went through the whole process. Whereas the idea of the DRC, which actually has the wrong name, in my opinion, that was really supposed to be a technical review committee, but you couldn't use the same name because so it was supposed to be the borough professionals, the planner, the engineer, would review the plans and see whether they, and the zoning officer would review the plans and see whether they conformed with what is required for the submission. That is the technical requirements, not whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. Now, it may be that the planning board and the Board of Adjustment members who were on the TRC, maybe they were more strict than the people that are reviewing it now, because I tend to agree with you that I think we've had a number of applications that were, let's say, not fully baked that, got to us, and I'm not sure why that is. But that was the reason why. It was supposed to be a change from, like I said, having it be like a pre-planning board to just having it be a technical review. Yes, here's the checklist. Did they do everything that's on the checklist? Does it conform with the parking requirements? Does it meet the standards of the, did you make note of the fact that you need DOT approval for the driveways, that sort of thing?
So I think in the end, everyone's concern is only to have the most prepared application meet the planning board or arrive at the planning board. Everyone's intention is good here. There were challenges with TRC. I think you and Ellen probably were the height of quality in that regard.
I don't know about that.
In the sense of just getting people to want to volunteer to participate. I think it's important to note that The successes of DRC are that there are, as you mentioned, Ellen, are all paid professionals. And I'm not going to say they have unlimited time, but they have extensive time. And many times you're here as a volunteer, and we're grateful for your service, but you have a full-time vocation, I would imagine most of us. Families, some people have continuing education, other boards they attend. So it was a challenge to get people to be able to participate with that same accessibility that DRC members are able to provide. So I think there were some benefits with the DRC specifically, and the number of professionals that can meet impromptu, not on a scheduled date. Why are we talking about this at all? I think that the kernel of it is that even with all that excellence, the last 5% of special sauce is what's missing, right? It's coming to us, and a lot of the serious and most important things are resolved, right? And there's this last aspect of, well, Ellen or John would not have let them out the door unless they conceded to X. I think that's why we're talking about this, right? The applications are coming to us and you're saying, hey, why is this not resolved? So I think everyone's intentions are good. They just want to have a fully resolved application arrive at the planning board. And maybe that can be done with someone participating on DRC, or maybe, as you say, John, there's interest in reviving TRC as it was. Again, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do or to say that one way is better than the other, but I think ultimately the goal is what? To have an application come here and not be missing, or to understand what the board is going to expect of them when they arrive. You're right, and again, I'm very proud of the board for being reasonable but tough, looking out for the community. That's why we're here, to be the caretakers and the guardians of that. So I don't know that there's an easy answer, but I do applaud everybody for their openness to discuss this, because I can tell it's on a lot of people's mind. And that's why I said last time, homework assignment, just think about it and how you feel. Anybody else who would like to talk about it now, please feel free and chime in and say what's on your mind, because I took up a lot of the oxygen.
I agree with everything that was said. I do feel like and maybe because we haven't had so many applications this year, it seems like we're not really in the same situation that we were in last year, when every meeting was just so painful because of the reasons that we discussed. We weren't getting the applications. So now we're in a different part of the cycle, and it's hard to know if it's because we just haven't had that many applications. So the ones that we have an opportunity to get more baked, or because we've had a change in people over the past year, but it just doesn't seem as bad as it was.
It's
So
been a very light year for the planning. board.
Extremely light, it's hard to say.
so it's
Thank
hard
you.
to say.
Universe. for that.
So I mean, one of the things I would say is, I sit on the DRC with Chris, and I noticed that for some of the more painful applications, even though the DRC gave guidance and sort of set an expectation, and, when it got in here, things were missing that I thought were going to show up after the DRC. So it was not, I'm using the word, it seems like some of the comments we made in DRC were disregarded, and maybe that's a very strong word, maybe they weren't disregarded, but it just seemed like things that I thought were going to be in the application that came before the planning board were not there, even though we talked about them in DRC.
So in a way, you yourself were surprised that the applicant didn't heed the advice given by the DRC.
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially since we make a big effort to be proactive and give them a pre-application review letter saying, expect to discuss these technical comments. And oh, by the way, we have some design review comments that will make it just look better. And in a lot of cases, the applicant would obviously do what they need to do for technical completeness. And maybe they would, I think disregard is the right word, a lot of the design review comments, partly because I'm just a planner and Linda is technically a staff member of the borough. I think there's something to be said about maybe one planning board member that could say, if this was in front of me, I wouldn't approve this. Those are powerful words.
We need a tough sheriff, I think, and we have one.
So,
Well, that's great. It's nice to hear people from the DRC actually kind of mirror some of that frustration as well, so we don't feel like anyone's ganging up on anyone, because that's not the case. There's there's definitely appetite from multiple board members to want to participate, again, with the aim of what? Only trying to make things as good as they can be.
Just one other comment
Please,
about
please.
when TRC happened. Towards the end of the era of the TRC, members of the public were coming to,
You know, I'm sorry.
No.
Because I looked at the ordinance that established the TRC, and we were incorrect in allowing members of the public.
Right.
Because the ordinance setting up the TRC said it would not be open to the public.
right.
So I
And then
think-
but then they did show up, and like,
And then-
Ellen was always very clear, like, this is not a decision-making body, it's advisory only. But we were having some pretty long meetings
Yeah.
by, with people. So I think it was just starting to get muddied, and I think that's
Yes.
why the council decided to take action and try to change it and just pull in the people that they needed for each application. But we have, as, members here have said, sat through some really incomplete applications that were torturous. And, you're right, I think we all just want to figure out how to get them more complete.
I think also one other difference between TRC and DRC, I'm correct. I think DRC meets like on a weekday in the afternoon because they're professionals and that's their work time. And when we would have TRC, it would be in the evening when people would hear about it. One neighbor would tell another, even though it wasn't a public hearing, it's hard to shut the door in someone's face, and say you can't come in. And even when you're there, so you can't say anything. But of course, talking together and, so the evening hours, of course, are more available to our population. And so I think that might be another factor that determines, how the DRC makes, is able to make a decision versus TRC.
Well, Linda, thank you. I appreciate your honesty. I wasn't going to be the one to go there. But John, that's the real reason. That's kind of the idea. There was a misconception about how things should operate, which caused some difficulties. And I think the goal was to simplify things. And I think the fact that the borough's professionals are available to each other during the workday and can sit down when opportunity arises is a good thing. Over these many years, again, we watch Chris change the procedures of the code enforcement officer since he held that role. He's always been of the mind to look at, okay, what things are plaguing the public that they're having to come to us for things that are onerous, that I see repetitively, that are unnecessary. And over the years, you've brought a lot of little things to make it simple, things that are reasonable, things that the board can feel safe to trust the code enforcement officer because it's not necessary for it to reach the planning board and have the applicant pay a lot. So I think, some of the benefits of DRC is, yes, they can all get together if opportunity presents itself, and volunteers' work are not going to be as available, right? So that's part of the challenge. And Ellen, as you said, if in fact it was never supposed to be a public process, then that's something that probably was missed all along. So, so much to talk about. Again, but I don't want to, for anything, not stress how grateful the board is for the DRC participants, how hard they work, how good they work. And even though we all agree we want to have this little bit of refinement, it's almost de minimis in the sense of, it's the end result that we're trying to get to. But again, everyone just being very straightforward and also supporting, I think, is great. So a lot to think about. But yes, I think it would be great to have that person who says, that's great, but you really shouldn't show up to the planning board if you're not willing to make any concessions because, nobody likes having their time waste on something that's preventable or predictable. Right? If there's a snowstorm, you can buy a shovel and some salt. You know it's coming, right? So anyway, how that all works out, that's what I said last week. You have to think about how you feel because there's multiple ways you could resolve this. And I'm not here to tell you what to do, just some of the context.
I actually have a question just then to pull together what different people said. So if Linda, going back to what you said, that you believe that the end result of the meeting would show us an application that took into consideration and it didn't, by having, is then the thought process, like someone else mentioned, that by having a planning board member who was a little bit more threatening, that's not the right word either, but that might be taken more seriously or what have you, would result in the application actually coming through the way that it was suggested, because we don't really know that that would help unless past history shows that having that planning board representative tends to have a better outcome. Because otherwise, is it just more of, okay, we had the meeting, but before we get to the planning board meeting, we need to see the application one more time to make sure that it.
I mean, to be fair, like, we have had multiple DRC meetings on some projects, right? Because
Right.
we would have a DRC meeting, we'd be like, yeah, this is a long shot, and, give them, Chris and the zoning officer, Tom, were always really good about guiding them, the engineer. And then they would come back to DRC. And I mean, I'm on the planning board, and I would be like, yeah, I don't think the planning board's going to approve that, Like, I don't think the professionals can really say that, but as a member of the planning board, I could say that. I really think that it came down to some of the applicants' professionals, in the end, disregarding some of the, advice they were given.
Okay.
And I don't know why. I don't know why you would do that. I don't know why you would bother having a DRC meeting and maybe even having more than one, and then still in the end coming to the planning board without taking all the advice that was given. So, I mean, that part I can't answer.
Well, you could even look at tonight's application, as John brought up, right? You got your approval. You agreed to the conditions. Why are you here? What is the reason for this relief that you seek, right? And in the end, at least the applicant was on it. I made a mistake, but it could have been economic. And bottom line is, when you go through the trouble of sitting here and hearing an application and you make a decision, you want that to be kind of where we land on, right? We don't want to always having to be revisiting things because for the wrong reasons. And I think there's a lot of meetings over the last 2 years where people said, why did this happen, right? So again, I don't want to cast any aspersions. I only have love for the DRC, for how hard they work, for how passionate they are. I just think that it would be great to have someone who is what's the right word I should use here, Lauren? Enthusiastically, whatever, spirited, right? We're not talking about being negative or condescending or whatever. We just want to say, you should probably take this advice seriously before you arrive at the board.
The description Mr. Murnau gave of from his perspective, or what he had heard about why the TRC process maybe wasn't ideal, I think resonated with me because it's not a legal process. It's an inputting process. Have you thought of this? Have you met this checklist? The power to approve or not lies with the entire planning board. And I can see why, thinking back on it now, having heard that explanation really for the first time, that applicants would sort of felt that it was a mini planning board meeting, and then that the two planning board members that were there and the technical people who were there, that if they got through that, who's the planning board to say no? That has some salience to me. So maybe that wasn't, perhaps, thinking about it more, the ideal setup, because that is not the function wasn't the function of the TRC or the DRC. In the end, the power to approve or not lies with this board, this body. So maybe that, but on the other hand, as we've said, perhaps the current process is missing something, some layperson's input. Well, yes, but, as somebody said. So maybe there is a middle ground that perhaps would be better than the current process and also better than the old process. And maybe there is not a compromise, because no one's advocating anything specific, I don't think, right now, but maybe there is a way to tweak that where the tension, because there's a tension there. We don't want the DRC, TRC body to be so powerful that it's in essence the planning board, because that isn't proper. Right. But we don't want it to be so weak that the planning board is getting incomplete and just not approvable applications. So maybe it was too powerful in a way before, from the planning board perspective. It was too representative of the planning board's eventual decision before. Maybe it's not now. Maybe there's a way to get in the middle where we can get better applications here without the applicants feeling that, well, we got through the DRC, so, we're gold. We don't have to prove anything. Then maybe there's a middle ground there that we went from one to the other. Maybe there's something in between that would be better.
Well, I know Councilman wants to speak, but I'll just steal a line from former Mayor Wiley, who comes before us frequently. And he always referred to it as a rational nexus, meaning that there's some place where we can all agree to meet on the curve that makes sense for both parties. But I could sense, Councilman, that you would like to participate.
I lean forward. Just building on what John was saying. So what I'm hearing a little bit is that when they go through this process, there's a number of pieces of advice that are given out to them, and they may take those and they may not take them. So I'm sort of curious, and maybe this is like getting a little too close to the line about how much Chris can provide to us, but in these review letters, like, is it possible to, like, these were the things I recommended, A, B, C, and D, and these are the things they did, to really point out to us as a board, this is what the planners were looking for, and this is what you're being presented. Like, that's not going to stop us from getting those multi-hour-long meetings. It's going to, they'll still end up coming here, but maybe not. Maybe it's enough of a stick by Chris saying, well, okay, that's fine. You don't have to take my advice, but just so you know, it's going to be part of this review letter. That's going to be in front of the board, and maybe that's enough to.
And Councilman Delia, I think it's safe to say whenever you see my reports, and if it's long, it's not because I found something late. It's usually I'm repeating the same comments and saying, all right, well, I'm going to put in my review memo, and it gets really long and it's frustrating because we talked about these things already.
And that's kind of how I feel. Chris, you do such a wonderful job. I mean, these things are just, you put so much effort into it. And to see applications come where, again, it's almost as though the letter wasn't written, It's frustrating, I think, for some of us. And again, everybody just think about this. Maybe that comment, John, maybe there's something where there's a way to meet in the middle. Again, I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do. I just think if people are going to volunteer on this board, they want to know that their time is well spent. Again, you're all, I see the microphone moving. Okay.
Sorry, I had to put
No,
my
Shannon.
2 cents in. I was just going to say, I think the other thing is we should not be afraid to say no.
For sure. For
You know,
sure.
if they've been guided in a certain direction and have completely ignored that and decided to come before us with an incomplete application or things that, someone said, this is not an acceptable application, then no.
I think, I try to be as controlled as I can, but there have been some applications in the last 2 years. It was all I can do to govern my anger to see how sloppy and lazy the work was, given that the advice was given at the DRC. So how do we make them listen more? Again, I keep saying, having a tough sheriff might be a good idea, just saying.
Yeah, and we could probably, I thought we did a pretty good job of making, trying to have applicants understand that the board really takes what the planner says to heart, like we trust our planner. But I also get the sense that some of the applicants felt like they could sell it, like maybe they couldn't sell it to us, but they could sell it to you guys, Being on DRC has been very interesting.
Yes, the whole process is interesting and always never boring, if nothing else, right? Okay. Anybody else want to say anything about that while we put it on the back of our minds to be thinking about for the future, since we have so many great stakeholders from so many different parts of the organization?
Well, thank you, Eric, for fostering and encouraging this discussion. I think it's helpful.
And thank you for bringing it up. And thank you again, DRC members, for your honesty and also for your hard work, just like planning board members. I think that's what always sustains our community, is just how many wonderful people we have participating in the process. All right, I see public portion, but we already did the public portion. I'll reopen it again. No one's out there. Let's close it just for formality. All right, anything else to discuss before we go home this evening? I have a lot to think about. All right, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all.